of Tano Channel Book Club. My name is Rutendo Mutsamwira, and I'll be your guest host for today's show, standing in for Selena Zikomo. Before we start, I would like to firstly welcome back everybody that has been a consistent and continuous supporter of this platform as we celebrate African authors. And if you're joining us for the very first time this evening or this morning, depending on wherever you are in the world, I'd like to say welcome and thank you for joining us. For those of you who don't know, the Tando Channel Book Club rather, celebrates African storytellers, particularly focusing on women. The main thrust of the conversations we have on this platform are to amplify the stories of African authors on the continent and in the diaspora, and secondly, see in which ways we can contribute to the growing narrative of Africa by Africans. And today we are spicing things up a little differently, focusing on audiobooks. So, first things first, audiobook is exactly what it is. It is a book in audio form. And over the last 2 years, there has been a global increase in consumption of audiobooks. I know it was very popular over the last, let's say, 5 to 10 years, where people would post the books they have read in a month or books they've read in a year, and you'll have some reading enthusiasts read as many as 36 books in a year. Honestly, salute to you if you can get through that many books in a year. But as we all know, because of how technology is continuously evolving and is continuously growing, we literally have the world on our fingertips. And with that comes more opportunities for us to learn from everybody else throughout the world, but also it broadens up our options on what it is that we can consume to make our lives and entertainment better. But before we get into audiobooks, let's bring it back home. Let's bring it back to Africa. For a very long time, there have been certain conversations focused on why African stories are not well documented. And when I say African stories, I mean history in particular. Africa and Africans have been known predominantly for oral tradition, where we tell our histories through stories. Now, I'm going to give you an example of what I grew up experiencing when we would go to see my grandparents in the village. We would all huddle together, gather together, and the chief storyteller for the evening would light a fire. There would be people drinking traditional beer, people drinking tea, people drinking water, all gathered in a community. And the elder would start the story by saying, Pairapo, which means once upon a time. And everybody else would say, Zepfunde, which loosely translated means go on and continue. Now, if we fast forward to where we are now with audiobooks, Africa started books in audio form in a way which was synonymous to us, which is oral tradition. Now, one of the things that challenged me as a voiceover artist was one of my friends reached out to me, and she is based in Toronto, Canada. And she said, Rutendo, do you know there is an app called Libby? Now, the app Libby hosts the Toronto Public Library. And on it, it is one of the biggest public libraries within Canada. And it is also ranked one of the top 5 in the world. Now, why is this important? Very few fiction and non-fiction books are available on this and other platforms by African authors that are in audio forms. Why is it important for African authors to have their books narrated by Africans to a broader and to appeal to a broader audience? And that is because African books have African characters, and African characters have names and places that are sometimes difficult to pronounce, and different situations and experiences that make it difficult for engagement purposes with a member or somebody who is not from the continent. So I think there's a huge opportunity there for us to see in what other way are we able to tell our stories through audiobooks. Before I continue, I would like to find out from anybody who's listening today if there are any books in particular that you have listened to and what apps you have used to listen to them. I know I was talking to Sapi earlier, and she was mentioning that she listened to Michelle Obama's Becoming. I have started listening to Trevor Noah's book in audio form as well. And one of the things that I've picked up is that if a book is written by a celebrity or somebody who is a public speaker, I feel like I'm having a conversation or a discussion with them. I'm very, very old school. So I love to have my books that I can hold, that I can write in, that I can figure out. But I'm going to read some statistics for you that show otherwise, and why I think as a continent we need to pay attention to the rise of audiobooks and rather audiobook consumption in Africa and in the world. So, according to the statistics, this is fact number one that you need to be mindful of. The global audiobook market size was valued at 2.67 billion United States dollars in 2019 and is expected to expand at a compound annual growth rate of 24.4% from 2020 to 2027. So it is no doubt that the demand for consuming books as people listen to them at the gym, as people cook, as people gather around, is on high demand. So my question to you tonight and for you as you watch the rebroadcast for today's discussion is, what are the hindrances that some authors are facing? And most importantly, is there a market on the continent for us to be able to start listening to more books? When I look at how we can create a more holistic ecosystem, I do think and feel that there should be more engagements between author and the creative voice over artists, as well as producers, to see in what way can we creatively put together our books in a way that captures the listener from chapter 1 to chapter 30, chapter 10, chapter 15. I was just doing some research and seeing that some books are as long as 14 hours. But the good thing about it is you can dissect and listen to it in bite-sized chunks. So please just let me know in the comment section, what are some of the audiobooks you've listened to, if any? And if not, are you still going to cling on to your bound books, or the books that you can read, or the books that you can read on your app? Let me know in the comment section while I pull out some more stats for you around audiobooks, and particularly audiobooks in an African context. I'll just give you guys a couple of seconds, and then we can move on with today's session. For those of you that are just joining us, welcome to Tandu Channel Book Club. My name is Rutendo Mutsamwira. Today I'll be standing in for Selina Zikomo, who is away, and today we are talking about audiobooks from an African perspective, exploring the different opportunities, the different obstacles, and the different tools that are there to help African stories gain more audiences, but most importantly, for authors to generate more revenue for the work that they are doing. Now, I don't know if any of you have heard about African Echoes. African Echoes is an audiobook app that was developed by an African. And I heard a bit of buzz about it last year and a bit more in the beginning of this year. We're still waiting for them to launch the app. I was hunting for it last night and today. But something of importance that I thought was important to share with everyone is the following. And it just helps to guide. As I mentioned earlier, for those that are just joining us, African countries have a long-standing tradition of oral storytelling. We'll gather around the fire, we'll gather in the classroom and share a story. Now, Ghanaian tech entrepreneur Herman Chinnery Hess wants to keep this tradition alive through an audiobook app called African Echoes. Now, the aim and vision for African Echoes is to translate different African stories from published and unpublished authors so that people in rural communities, as well as in urban communities and in the diaspora, are able to share stories in real time and to learn the stories and experiences from other parts of the world by Africans to the rest of the world. So I see that we also have somebody who said that they have been listening to Gabrielle Union's We Need More Wine. We're going to need more wine. And again, it goes back to celebrities capitalizing on the gifts that they have to give additional experiences for audiences. Now, because we have got so many things that are pulling at us for our attention, so much information that we have to consume, a lot of people are struggling to actually just sit down and say, I'm going to dedicate an hour to hear everything. If it hasn't been digitized, it has been audio visualized to make people's lives easier. But then also just people don't have the time to still themselves. We're just constantly on our gadgets. And I remember reading that more men than women consume audiobooks. And that's interesting because you'll see these buff guys at the gym with their big JBL headphones or Beats headphones, pounding it in the gym, lifting weights. Chances are they're not listening to a power rap list. Chances are they're listening to an audiobook. And that's quite interesting because when I started listening to audiobooks, I honestly didn't think that I would retain as much information. As much as I like writing down and scribbling, I do see and feel that there is an opportunity that is yet to be further explored. So I'd like to hear from you in the comment section if there are any books that you're reading. If you are an African author, have you thought about in what way you can get your work to broader audiences through audiobooks or through partnering with other creatives to say, for example, record a chapter and see what the audience engagement or the audience's reception of your work in audio form will be. Okay, so we don't have anybody that has shared any books that they are reading from them. So Sapi, I'm going to pick on you because you mentioned that you remember. What are some of the issues that you have? Because I know that you have experienced audiobooks through listening to Michelle Obama's Becoming. Pros and cons of audiobooks, in your opinion. I know for one, I struggle with attention. If I'm listening to an audiobook, in my mind, I can already visualize that there's so many other things that I can do. So I'm not entirely focused on what I'm hearing. So that lack of focused attention is something that I need to work on. But Sapi, if you'd like to share what your experiences are with your audiobooks while we wait for everybody else to chime in. Okay, Sapi says, I tend to drift off. So now, when you say you tend to drift off, one of the things that storytellers have a knack for is creating great experiences in our minds, um, from their perspective, but we interpret what we listen to or what we read. And so it's easy to just drift off and create your own characters from what you are listening. So one of the cons, like Sapi mentioned, is that drifting off. But what are some of the positives that you got from it? Earlier today on my morning walk, I started listening to Atomic Habits. And so at the back of my mind throughout the day, there were certain cues or certain triggers that as I was going through my day, I remembered, okay, I need to focus on this, or this will lead to this. So I need to map out this and this. So I think there's certain cues that I got from listening to Atomic Habits. Um, and I think one thing also that I would suggest and recommend, to whoever would like to get onto the audio book train is, if you can, you can also check on YouTube or on Google for summary versions of the book that it is that you're going to listen to, where you're able to get a synopsis of what it is that you're getting yourself into, so that you can decide, am I going to listen to this? Because there are a lot of reviews. I started listening to Atomic Habits because I started off listening to a summary, because again, now we are a microwave generation. We want to listen to everything and get all the information that we need, at a glance. So I would recommend that to somebody who's a bit on the fence, in the same way that you would open a book and read at the back to get a synopsis of what the book is about. I think that is, also important as you do your shopping for your audiobooks. Sapi says, walk and listen to a book. You can multitask. So yeah, it's still an experience. One of the things that I liked was, there was somebody who described audiobooks as a new art form, right? So this is not a book. This is one of my journals. But now, when you look at the thought that goes into the process of putting together a book, there's a typesetting, there is the design aspect, there is the chronology of the story. And I assume that the same amount of work, if not more, goes into creating an audiobook experience. Earlier on, Sapi and I were talking about an anthology that she was listening to, where the author of the book was reciting a poetry in a way that became a bit sort of a performance. So it's like a two in one. You've got a book, but then you've got a glimpse of what that would translate into, should you then see, um, the author then pivoting into hosting live events or meta events. And I think there is, an untapped opportunity I would like to explore. And I'm in the process of doing some sample recordings, exploring what uh, versatile experience we could have with audiobooks. It doubles along the line of podcasting, but now we're at a time where everybody's concentration, not even concentration, everybody wants a slice of everybody's attention. Where, if you look at how people are designing different digital art and NFTs, some of the most crazy and outrageous things are making millions through the NFT platforms. But I think also, as we are evolving, and while audio books are still in its infancy, they're raking in a lot of money for publishing. So I would be interested to see, in what way could we have a distinctly African experience. Because in the same way that the author, as you're reading, will paint a picture and say, as the sun was setting in Zimbabwe, with the Zupco bus, rolling down the gravel, narrow road. I would like there to be some subtle jit music. And jit music is a genre in Zimbabwe which is synonymous with some of the rural areas, the growth points, the townships. Because if we're going to be telling African stories, I think it's not enough to merely recite what is written in a book. I would challenge African authors to step it up a little bit. Africans are known to be the flavor of the world, and that is an undeniable fact. And I would be interested to see what that flavor, that African flavor and African flair could do and put in the audiobook space. Sapi, if you could add some African flair um, into an audiobook experience, and I'm going to put you on the spot and say, let's say Tando Channel and the journey that Tando Channel has had as a book club. And we're talking about from episode 1. Would you just want us to talk about Chando Channel and how it started with Dr. Stare and Tendai? There were once upon a time, there were these two lovely girls. Of course, we need to add some spice to that story and experience. So if you were to give a bit of spice and an African flair to an audiobook documenting the Tando Channel journey, Sapi, what would that be? And that's really putting you under the spot. You don't have to answer that today, but please incorporate that when you share more information around the Tando Channel journey, because I think there is an opportunity to differentiate ourselves as African storytellers. Okay. As we get ready to wrap up, I've just got a couple of things that I would like to share while Sapi thinks about the spice and flair she'll have in the audiobook, documenting the Tando Channel book club and the channel's journey. Okay. You can be the voice behind the story. Oh, I can be the voice. Oh, there we go. I can be the voice behind the story. Yes, certainly. Well, I think we've already started scripting the story. So I have got a couple of poems. No, not poems, proverbs. Shona proverbs that I will say in Shona, and then I'll translate them as best as I can in English. And the only reason why I'm going to do this example is we need to have a business and a global mindset when it comes to sharing our stories. The weight of our vernacular languages, the enormity of our stories and where we've come from, it just sounds completely different when you say it in your native tongue, and then when you explain it. I find it when I consume literature from another country and when I hear it explained, they'll say it in their language first, and then when they explain it, there's certain non-verbalized, when I say non-verbalized, there's certain nuances you can pick up from the enormity in which someone says something. So anyway, I'll say a couple of proverbs and then I will give the translation. Okay, number 1. Zingizi gonyera pamwe, maruva enyika aperi. And what that means is, and I'll do it word by word, Zingizi, wasp, gonyera pamwe, hunchback and get your head down in another flower. The flowers of the land are plenty. So this proverb means is that don't be weary or don't tire during a good, don't tire from working on your books, authors. Don't tire from pursuing what it is that you're doing, because just because you are a wasp that lands pollen for you to pollinate from, that doesn't mean that the next flower will not be sufficient to get you to the next chapter or where you need to be. So now, African author, imagine saying that as part of a paragraph saying, oh, we have a proverb in Shona that says, oh, wasp, do not be wary. But now, when somebody is listening to that, not only are you sharing your story, but you're also giving them a glimpse of your culture. You're also planting a seed that will enable the person that is listening to your work to want to explore and learn more about where you come from, to learn more about the cultural nuances that influence art. And when you incorporate certain elements like music, you're literally giving somebody a glimpse of your world or a glimpse of your imagination that goes beyond just your books. Because I believe that until we start realizing that the work that we do contributes to our economies, it contributes to the perception of our people and our continent, we won't realize the enormity of what we carry. And so with that, I'll share um, one last proverb, just for you to realize the enormity. There's one that we love as Africans, we love to throw it around quite a bit. Umuntu, okay, let's start that again. Umuntu gumuntu gabantu. Now I know I did not pronounce that correctly, but I'll say the Shona version. Munu munu nekudakwe. A person is a person. You are who you are because of others. Munu munu. So now it helps with different icebreakers when people are in different scenarios. Oh, you're from Malawi. Oh, you're from Zimbabwe. It just helps share not just your story, but the stories of your people and for generations that shall come after you. And I think it's important for African authors to realize that, first of all, no one is going to come and rescue us and say, oh, we've realized that out of the 27 billion that we could be making, we've realized that, oh, African authors, you guys, there's a huge market. Until we take that responsibility around how do we collaborate and create synergies, we will continue to fall behind in furthering our industries. And everything is at our fingertips. We just need to stop thinking in silos and seeing in what ways can we come together as content creators, publishing houses, voiceover artists, spoken word artists. If you are an author and you think, I don't really like the way my voice sounds, or I don't think I'll be able to read 14 chapters of my book, take the responsibility of finding out who can you collaborate with, how can we explore, what can we do. And it doesn't have to cost you an arm and a leg. The most important thing is committing to start. There's so many free tools that are available. Before we get onto the Libby's, before we get onto Audibles, let's start with the WhatsApp. In your book clubs, I'm a spoken word artist, and I'll share my information at the end of the show. But I challenge you, African authors, what is stopping you from playing in the major leagues? Yes, we spoke about publishing. We've spoken about publishing over many other broadcasts and situations. But what are you going to do with what you have, where you are, to set yourself apart as an African storyteller? Because that will drive sales, but most importantly, you don't know what other opportunities you are sitting on, because it's not just about writing a book. It's not just about reciting a book. There's so many more things that you can explore. Why are there not enough? Why aren't there more, rather, African stories on Netflix? Your book could be developed into something else, but because people don't have time to go and read your manuscript, if you send them um, a chapter or even one paragraph of your book, what it is and what it is about, it helps the next person think, I want to invest in that idea. I want to invest in that book. What can we develop? Can we develop a play? Can we develop a limited series? Can we develop a movie? Can we develop an animated series? How many books do we have by African authors or children's books by African authors? These are the sort of conversations we should be having with our animators. Let us now digitize and monetize the books that we've written, because if we do it, somebody else will do it, and then we'll now start pointing fingers saying, oh, they're copying us, but it's not us. What are you doing? My name is Rutendo Mutsamwira, and I have been your guest host for today. I am a spoken word artist as well as a voiceover artist. And if you would like to collaborate, if you are an African author and you're thinking outside the box, get in touch with me. My email address is rmutsamwira@gmail.com. Get in touch and let's see what we can do to create more and more opportunities for our work to be shared, and most importantly, for our work to outlive us. What's the point of just having a book that's in a bookshelf? The models are changing. Radio is changing. The internet is changing things. And if you don't take ownership of what it is that you're doing and that you could become, you'll just be forgotten. And we don't want that to happen to you. So for those of you that are watching this rebroadcast and that shall watch the rebroadcast, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today for a special edition focusing on audiobooks. And if you're looking at the comment section, you saw we will be looking forward to an audiobook version experience of Tando Channel and the Tando Channel book club journey of celebrating African stories. If not us, then who? If not now, then when? My name is Rutendo Mutsamwira. Again, it has been a blessing and an honor joining you tonight. Wishing you nothing but the best in everything that you are doing in your life and in all opportunities. Remember, Africa is the cornerstone, and we need you and we need each other. God bless, and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.